Hello, everybody. My name is Ann Kunzen, and I am a librarian at the Huntley Area Public Library, and we are offering this program today with Kathy Wentz. Thank you for joining. Thank you for registering and being here. We are currently open for quick browsing. You can come in and check out books, use the computer for a 1-hour limit, but we're asking you to make your visits short and sweet. We are so happy to help you find books for your children. We also have added a new Books for You service online. So if you look for that on our website, we can choose a stack of books for your children if you give us some information about what they like to read. I love doing that. So hopefully you'll find that. Just a couple of notes about programming. We do have online and virtual programming available. Currently, we are running a children's winter reading program for ages birth to 12. We have two options. You can either print a reading log and do the activities, turn the log in, and get a Lou Malnati's personal pizza for your child for just turning it in. Or you can participate on Beanstack, which is our virtual winter reading program. So we'd like you to do either or, not both, but that's a winter reading for 0 to 12. We also have a 30-book challenge for readers who are 7 to 12. So if you go to Beanstack, you'll also find the 30-book challenge. That is running from September all the way through the whole school year until May 1st. So check that out if you're interested. It'd be great to have you join that. I'm also supposed to tell you that on Monday we have an artist giving us a program. Do you want to draw a snowman for ages 6 to 12, I believe. So if you look on our library website, I will actually post the link in chat so you can go to our website and register for that program. That's going to be live and a video will show up later, but if you have time on Monday, I think it's at 4 o'clock on Monday the 18th. So that is all I have for you. Whoops. I was just going to add somebody else. Did you add those folks there, Kathy?
I did.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure about the phone number. I wanted to check that because that's not a name. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Somebody calling in is okay. So we have 18 out of our list. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you again to Kathy. I'm so excited to see you and so glad to have another great homeschooling program for our folks in the Huntley area, or actually anywhere in Illinois, since you're based in Illinois. This is great for everybody. So we have you doing the 7 habits of highly effective homeschoolers, and that's your introduction. So welcome. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you so much for having me.
Say. Applause, right?
Well, yeah.
So
thank you very much for having me. I love doing these workshops, and I recognize an awful lot of faces here. So as you know, I love doing these workshops. You probably can't get me to shut up half the time. But I think one of the things that Huntley has recently done that I have yet to see is the new edition. Because you also have had some reconstruction. So I can hardly wait until we can all go and visit and see what you have done.
It will be a little while. We will have a closing part of March and part of April to move into the new edition. And we will then, in April, we will open services in the new part of the library while the old part is closed for the rehab over there. So it's still going to be kind of chaotic, but we will be excited to be in our new space and in our new children's room, which is going to be awesome. So excited.
Well, your old children's room was pretty tight.
Yeah, the trailer.
And you know, I'm from the Johnsburg Public Library, and Johnsburg knows all about tight spaces. We ran out of space quite a few years ago, but we have continued to maintain a space for the Homeschool Resource Center. And for those of you who have not been up to the Homeschool Resource Center, we've got at Johnsburg about 2,000 curriculum items that you can come in and you can check out. You can try these things before you buy these things and save yourself a boatload of cash. And the other nice thing is we have science equipment. And so nobody wants to necessarily buy a microscope. You can come and just borrow a microscope for 6 weeks. And the other beauty of it is if you have a full service Illinois library card, you can interlibrary loan almost anything, not the microscopes, but almost anything from that collection. So you can go to Huntley and you can say, hey, can you get me the following 3 books from Johnsburg? And they absolutely can. So it's a lovely, lovely thing when you want to try something, but you don't necessarily want to drive up, especially in today's day and age. I know Johnsburg is open on a limited basis as well, as they also have a curbside pickup service. Does Huntley have that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We
Wonderful.
do offer that as well. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. I know an awful lot of the libraries are offering that where they can't really be open. So it's been a difficult situation for many. If you could drop into the chat if anybody is not from Illinois, because some of the information that I am going to be sharing does have to do specifically with Illinois, and I want to make sure that if you're not from Illinois, I include you in that information, and Anne can kind of let me know what all is going on if that is the case. So the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Homeschoolers is a pretty direct ripoff of Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this 1980s era phenom, he wrote a wide variety of materials, and then his family members have kind of come off on that. So there's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. There's books for businesses. There's books for all kinds of things. And then there's the 8th habit, which I will briefly mention as well. And he wrote one entire book just on the 8th habit. And Stephen Covey's books are available as audiobooks on Audible. So if you are not the kind of person that would necessarily pick up the book and read it, there's also a way of getting it. And there are some absolutely lovely parenting stories that I will be referring you to because he, like most of us, was a parent. Stephen Covey has passed on. So I refer to him in the past tense, but absolutely lovely materials. So I do have a packet of information, and Anne can absolutely send that to you at the end of the workshop. I'm going to open it up now, and hopefully everybody can see it. And I'm not seeing the top of it, and I'm not sure why. So hang on just a second. There we go. So the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Homeschoolers, again, direct ripoff. The first habit, I think to a large extent for many newer homeschoolers, becomes one of the most important. That's being proactive, heading off issues before they ever happen. I know an awful lot of newer homeschoolers in particular that get completely freaked out because they're so worried. And I know for a fact that it's not only new homeschoolers that this happens to. This happens to people when they're transitioning from grade school to high school. This happens to people when their kids are going to transfer from high school to college. This happens when they encounter, why is my 3rd grader not reading consistently yet? So it happens a lot in every good parent's life. So it happens to homeschoolers too. Let's face it, no matter what you do, if you're a good parent, you are going to be worried. And if anybody tries to tell you, oh, just be calm, there's no reason to worry. No, you're a good parent, you're going to worry. It's just the way it goes. But being proactive has a lot to do with calming those fears. So my first number 1 thing, do you fully understand the homeschooling laws that you live under? And this is where I say, is everybody here from Illinois? So in Illinois, you are a private school. And as a private school, you have all of the rights, privileges, and responsibilities of every other private school in the state of Illinois. You are legally no different than the Roman Catholic school in your neighborhood. You're no different from the Jewish day school. You're no different from the Montessori school. You legally are the same. Now, there are one or two small issues. You have less than 15 students between the ages of 7 and 16. You don't need to fill out the mandatory school busing reports. You don't have to you don't have to worry that you have to clean only with organic cleaners. You don't have to serve 6 breads a day or whatever ridiculous amount of breads the school system is required to serve. You are allowed to have a gun within 500 feet of your home, you know, that kind of thing. So some of those things have been negotiated away because you have under 15 students, but you are a private school. So if you would not expect the public school principal to go to the local Montessori school and demand to see their curriculum, you wouldn't expect that at your private school either. If you would not expect the public school to come into your home and make sure that your students are okay, because they don't do that at the local Catholic school, guess what? You would not expect that at your private school either. Now, as a private school, you do have responsibilities. You're supposed to teach the core subjects in the English language. That's your responsibility. Core subjects are defined, but in all honesty, they're so loosely defined, they mean almost nothing. So, for instance, you are supposed to teach math, you're supposed to teach biological and physical sciences, you're supposed to teach health. That's it. They don't really define what specifically is supposed to be taught at each age, at each grade, etc. Why? Because the public schools couldn't do that either. If you look at a 3rd grade classroom, you will have children in that 3rd grade classroom who are barely reading a sentence, and you will have children in that 3rd grade classroom that are probably reading big, long chapter books, and you'll have everything in between. If you look at that same 3rd grade classroom, you will have some kids that are struggling with basic addition and subtraction, and you'll have others that have already memorized their multiplication tables. There is no standard that a public school's children need to adhere to. So there's no standard that your children need to adhere to either. Your children are fine. There is no behind in homeschool. And I think that that's something, quite frankly, that an awful lot of parents need to hear multiple times, occasionally multiple times a day. Let me repeat, there is no behind in homeschool. I'm going to say it one more time just so that I can get everybody in the back. There is no behind in homeschool. Your kids are okay. And I know that if you have a special needs child, or if you have a highly gifted child, or you have, like many of us, a 2E child, meaning they're both special needs and highly gifted, okay, they're fine. It's just a matter of finding what works best for that child. It has nothing to do with them being behind or the law is going to come and somehow get me, right? If you have questions about the law, I always recommend going to a webpage called Illinois House. So I am literally going to take you there. We're going to go to Google. We're going to type in Illinois, spell out the word HOUSE.org, right? And IllinoisHouse.org is a homeschool site for Illinois homeschoolers by Illinois homeschoolers. It is completely non-sectarian, which means they don't care what religion you are or if you are a religion. So all of the information that you should need is on here. If you have a question that is not on here, please let me know. I am absolutely happy to help you find the legal information that is needed. So this has everything from can my child participate in sports, to driver's ed information, to how to withdraw my child from school. It is literally all here. And I've written an awful lot of the articles here. My most recent thing that I've been working on is actually this historic cases list. And I'm laughing because in the historic cases, just today is, why does the city of Chicago not have an elected school board? Here's why, right here: Richard Martwick's legacy on Illinois homeschooling. That is why. Richard Martwick is the reason why the city of Chicago does not have an elected school board. So have a good time exploring the Illinois House webpage. Again, if you have questions, please do contact me off of this workshop, and I'll be more than happy to help you, explore those options. Or if it's a brief question, perhaps we can handle it here too. So,
I do have just a comment, Kathy.
Yes.
We did have one lady mention that she's in Wisconsin. Do you have a similar page that you recommend for those folks in Wisconsin?
I do. It's the WPA, the Wisconsin Parents Association. And the WPA has tons and tons of information about homeschooling in Wisconsin. Do be aware, in Wisconsin, you do need to register. So in Illinois, you do not need to register. We are literally like a totally free and open state. In Wisconsin, you do need to register on an annual basis, but there is no testing required, just as there is no testing required in the state of Illinois.
Okay, thank you. I posted that link in the chat, and I'll be putting other things as well. So if you haven't looked at that yet, that's where stuff is going to be. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.
So step number 2, this is a difficult step in the time of COVID. Have you found your tribe? Every homeschooling family needs a support network. I know Facebook has tons and tons and tons of groups. MeWe has a couple of groups. There are some in-person groups, but they've gotten, from what used to be 50 people, now it's 15 people. And in January, it's particularly difficult because it's really hard to meet outside with masks on and all that other stuff. So in the time of COVID, it's really much harder to find your tribe. I know that there are a lot of political differences with Facebook, but there are a lot of groups on Facebook. So if you're having a difficult time finding your tribe, again, you can seek me out outside of this. I will be more than happy to help you find a tribe. And by your tribe, I mean a group that's actually a support network. There are a lot of groups out there. They're not necessarily your group. If you go into a group and you don't feel supported and encouraged and enriched, you're in the wrong group. Find a different group. If you go into a group and they're like, well, we use, this curriculum, that might not be the right group unless you really love that curriculum. Find the right group for you. If you go into that group and you are a Charlotte Mason homeschooler and everybody there is a Waldorf homeschooler, it might not be the right group for you. Find your tribe. Find your support network so that you are fully enriched and supported, right? Next, are you using the materials that support both your educational philosophy and your students' learning style and your learning style? If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to go to a different page. I kind of flip between pages a lot here, so bear with me. All right. I love the different educational philosophies. I think an awful lot of us, this is really small. Let me get that bigger. I think that most of us, too big, need to explore different educational philosophies when we first start homeschooling, instead of just jumping into, I'm going to do school at home because I'm most comfortable with what the public school was doing. The problem is school at home doesn't support a lot of kids. So public schools are designed for visual learners who like to fill in the blanks, right? Who are cooperative learners. If you have a child who is not a visual learner and does not like to fill in the blanks, school at home might be more difficult for you or family. There are so many children that are not fill in the blank visual learners. They like doing everything with their hands. They want to move. They got to move. They're desperate to move. Okay. School at home is very, very difficult for these kids, just as it would be if they were in public school, because school at home follows the public school model. Now, if school at home is really what you're most comfortable with, absolutely. And I have listed a bunch of different curricula options here, including ABECA, ACE, which stands for Accelerated Christian Education, Acellus, Calvert, Easy Peasy All-in-One Homeschool, Khan Academy, Time for Learning. Some of those are across the board. Some of those are free. Some of those are very expensive. Some of those are a la carte where you buy one class. There's a whole variety of things there. But that is all very school at home. There are options, and a lot of people kind of don't see the different options when they first start homeschooling. So there's classical. Now, the joy of classical is that it's the original liberal arts education. And classical homeschooling, by definition, does not use textbooks, traditional textbooks. They use real books, living books. And what's interesting is the last 15 years or so, there have been a lot of people who've kind of jumped on the classical hay wagon and published a lot of textbooks. And I'm finding this really kind of interesting because it's like, it's a classical textbook? Does that compute? So as you're looking at classical education and you're seeing a lot of textbooks, kind of take it with a grain of salt, all right? But the book that a lot of classical homeschoolers really gravitate toward the beginning, and in all honesty, I love book, is The Well-Trained Mind. And The Well-Trained Mind is a phenomenal list of resources. That author, all right, Susan Weiss Bauer, has written tons of textbooks. All right, she's one of the ones that I was talking about. And interestingly, the last book that I read that she wrote was it's only like 2 years old. And she says, oh, well, my textbooks that I've been writing didn't work at all for my youngest child. Because her youngest child, it turns out, is a non-traditional learner. And she didn't realize until he was in 9th grade that he wasn't learning any of the stuff that she was doing in her textbooks. An interesting lesson, all right? But we have Veritas Press, Colby Academy, Classical Conversations, Classical Christian Homeschooling. Those are all classical approaches to this. Again, some of these are very expensive, some of these are completely free, but a classical education involves, basically a lot of reading, a lot of literature, Greek, and learning Greek and Latin. It involves memorization and dialogue. It involves a lot of structure. And it's a phenomenal education for your fill-in-the-blank kind of kid, right? For those that it is appropriate for somebody who loves to read. Charlotte Mason is a lot like classical, but the structure that she offers is a little bit different. In fact, it's a lot different. And she wants you to listen to your child's needs. So in Charlotte Mason, if, for instance, your child desperately at 4 years old needed to play the violin, she would say, that's okay, let's find one of those little 3/4 size violins. If you were a classical homeschooler, you would say, that's great, honey, you have to learn to play the piano first so you learn the structure of music, then you can learn to play the violin. In Charlotte Mason, she'd say, I bet you we can find some Suzuki lessons. So it is a different approach. Charlotte Mason was also from rural France, and it has a more moderate climate there. And she wanted everybody to spend at least an hour outside every day. This is not quite as good in Northern Illinois, but or Wisconsin, but is absolutely something to aim for. I always say that there's no bad weather, there's only bad snowsuits. So if you can bundle them up, get them outside is the opinion. Charlotte Mason was big into learning about God through learning about God's ultimate creation, which was nature, or which is nature, people and nature. So it is a Christian approach, as is classical. A lot of it is the same. She did not want textbooks. She wanted living books. That is her phrase, living books. And she called any book that was not a quality book twaddle. So Captain Underpants is twaddle. On the other hand, Captain Underpants might be the perfect book to get your kid actually encouraged to read a book. So in my family, we had an 80 to 20% quality to twaddle ratio that I aimed for. And still to this day, kind of in my own personal life, try for an 80% real living quality book to 20% just pure garbage. I admit I read garbage sometimes. It's okay. I like Janet Ivanovich. I admit it. I'm so ashamed. But every once in a while, it's okay to like some twaddle, and it's okay for your children to like some twaddle too, in my opinion. Again, there are some free resources here. There are some expensive resources here. There are some full resources. There are some bits and pieces resources. You can pick. Waldorf and Montessori, I like to cover kind of together. Waldorf and Montessori are exact opposites on the philosophy spectrum. And a lot of people, they'll go to a Waldorf school and they'll go to a Montessori school. They like both of them. I've even heard some people have like a blend between the two, which is very intriguing to me. So Waldorf is a very non-Christian but spiritually based program involving a delayed formal academics. No reading, no writing, no arithmetic until after they have cut their first eye teeth. All right, so you delay formal academics usually until about 8. But they do a lot of music and arts and literature, and it's all hands-on. And even for an older child, they'll spend all morning doing music and art and literature and crafts, and then they'll spend maybe an hour or two in the afternoon doing formal seat work. When they say that the child writes their own textbook, they literally write their own textbook. The teacher writes it up on the board, and the kids copy it down. So it is very, very rich in an awful lot of ways. They work on the different stages of a child's development, and they really work to build the entire child. The intellectual child, the artistic child, the spiritual child, the movement of the child, it all comes together in Waldorf. Earth Schooling, Oak Meadow, Waldorf online library, those are all Waldorf inspired. Montessori, on the other hand, instead of kind of directing what a child does all day within that very, very natural environment that Waldorf loves, Montessori loves that natural environment, but gives a child a lot of freedom during the day. And instead of telling a child, no, don't do that, they'll like move the sofas in front of the outlets. So you don't have to tell a child no. Now, a Montessori teacher will take 2 times during the day, usually 2 15, 20-minute periods during the day, and they will work on kind of trying to bring the child into new ideas. So say little Johnny has been playing in the toy kitchen for 3 months. They cannot get little Johnny to interact with his classmates. They can't get him to try other things. Clearly, little Johnny is getting a lot out of this toy kitchen, or he wouldn't still be there. Or as I always say, nobody plays Candyland for forever. Okay? Thank goodness I hated that game. When you have that, then you would bring stuff to little Johnny and the rest of the class, trying to encourage other things. So they might go into the real kitchen to bake cupcakes for Susie's birthday tomorrow in the morning, and then in the afternoon they might frost those cupcakes. They might bring in the little lap harps and learn how to play Happy Birthday on the lap harps so that everybody can sing and play different instruments for Susie's birthday. Food-related things. They might talk about going to the grocery store or going to the farm. They might talk about the baby panda that was born that's the size and shape and weight of a stick of butter. And look at the size of mommy, and look at that little tiny baby that's literally the weight of a stick of butter, and pass around a stick of butter. So you have all of those different opportunities that you could choose to bring in to a Montessori classroom, right? But again, Waldorf is all about structure over a child's day in a free and nature-oriented environment. And Montessori is all about the free and nature-oriented environment and pretty much an unstructured day, but just encouraging them to go and do some of those other activities. So philosophically, they're very, very different. Unit study approach, I always encourage almost every new homeschooler and those who have kids in junior high to do unit studies. And the reason I say those in junior high, it's because junior high tends to be a holding tank for hormones. And for at least a couple of months out of every junior high age kid, their brain kind of goes south. They can't figure out where they are in time and space anymore. They can't figure out what the letter W is. They can't, they just lose their minds, and it's hormones. It's not their fault. They will recover given sleep and time and good nutrition. Just let their brains melt down. It's kind of like the terrible twos, but much bigger. I can remember my kids, I only have boys, and they, during those horrible growth spurts where they grow, like an inch overnight, they would be emptying the dishwasher and just slam dishes into one another. And I'd be like, oh, more broken dishes, because they lost track of where they were in time and space. They were taller. They didn't know where they were anymore. Mom, where's the salt? It's in the same place it's been for the last 8 years. Where is that? Okay, here's the salt. They just lose their minds. Unit studies are great for this. In a unit study, you would spend, September learning about apples. In January, you might learn about the different kinds of snow. You might learn about aviation. You might learn about the panda bears. Have your child pick a topic and learn about that topic. You might learn about World War II with those older kids. You might learn about horses. I laugh this time of the year. You might learn about football. You might learn about hockey. Have the kid pick a topic. You help find materials on that topic. If you go to Google and you type in the words free unit study horses, you will get hundreds of hits, thousands of hits. If you go to Google and you type in free unit study ancient Greece, you will get thousands of hits. If you go to Google and you type in the words free unit study frogs, you get thousands of hits, many of them having to do with the book Frog and Toad, or the books Frog and Toad. If you go to Google and you type in free unit study, pick your topic, you will get hits. All right. It is amazing to me how much is out there. If you are interested in a unit study approach, there are unit studies already made for you free on the internet. You can also go to the library and check some out. Your librarian is the perfect place to go and get unit study materials. You call up people like Anne and you say, hi, Anne. I have a child who is 7 years old and is interested in horses. What do you got? I'll be over in 2 hours. And Anna's going to run over to the stacks and pull a whole bunch of books and find a whole bunch of wonderful books about horses. And if you can find 3 books out of that stack that really work for you, great. And then you go on to YouTube Kids, not the regular YouTube, YouTube Kids, and you find videos about horses. It is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. There are also wonderful, if you have a child who is 8 or under, there's the wonderful curriculum called 5 in a Row. And 5 in a Row is just a lovely, sweet, literature-based curriculum. You read the book 5 days in a row and you do the activities. And there's another one called Konos, which is good if you have 8 kids. It literally sets it up so that there are activities for each of those age groups, and everybody in the whole family is doing the same unit study. Konos is very Christian, though, so if you're not Christian, Konos is not for you. Unschooling or child-led learning. It's kind of funny. Unschooling kind of got a bad rap. It means never telling your child no. That's not what it means. Unschooling is child-led learning. So you might have two teenagers sitting side by side doing the exact same math curriculum, one who was required to do it by mom, one who chose to do it because it was the best curriculum for him. That happens all the time. And John Holt is the one who coined the term unschooling, and it basically just meant, that you were giving your child a choice in what they liked to do or what they did not like to do. And if you give your child a choice, how would you like to learn about bees? How would you like to learn about nouns and verbs? Okay, it works much, much better for an awful lot of these kids. All right, so I'm going to go back and we're going to answer some questions.
Yes, thank you. We have a couple of questions from folks. And then I also wanted to insert that the information that you had about unschooling and unit studies on that document, I believe that's from the Homeschooling 101 document that I have from our last time. So if anybody wants that information as well, if you could email me, I've put my email in the chat. Please email me and I will send that to you tomorrow. Okay, I have the habits, the 7 habits handout, and also the Homeschooling 101. Just let me know which ones you would like. Okay,
wonderful.
And then here we have a question, and there are no stupid questions. She says, I am just starting preschool with my only daughter, and I'm swamped with emails from homeschooling websites. How do you filter through them, and how do I know what's important?
So what kind of information were you looking for when you went and you got on all those mailing lists is always my first question. In all honesty, if they're making you anxious, just don't read them. Mm-hmm. You don't need a whole bunch of homeschooling websites. You need to find your tribe. Mm-hmm. And when they're little, I would go with something like 5 in a Row if you're looking for activities, or there are a bunch of different activity books at the library, or you could just go to the library and find books. You don't need a curriculum. You don't need a lot of information. You just need to interact with your child when they're little like that. In all honesty, as far as filtering through this stuff, I might not even bother. I might just unsubscribe from all those things. Mm-hmm. If you're on Facebook and you're looking at a whole bunch of lists, what is valuable to you? Mm-hmm. What makes you feel empowered? What makes you feel like you know what you're doing with your child? Mm-hmm. That's what you keep reading. Mm-hmm. Everything else, kick it to the curb.
That's a good answer. She said, thank you for that. That's very helpful. Another question really along the lines of that, this person is finding that Googling unit studies led her to an abyss of blogger unit studies that you have to subscribe to get their advertising rather than get their unit studies. That
will happen occasionally.
Yeah, that's almost as bad as when you just want the recipe, but you have to scroll through 100 pages of things to get the recipe. So that
just go to somebody else's. Mm-hmm. there are a lot, literally, I don't know what specific topic you were Googling for, but there are others out there that are free. So just go to the next one and then go to the next one. There are a lot of people out there who, writing unit studies is their side gig, and they do want to earn, $5 for that unit study. That's what Teachers Pay Teachers is best known for. And most of the stuff up on Teachers Pay Teachers, you can read the stars. Is it worth $5? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it is. I am an incredibly frugal person, so I will always check with my library first, mm-hmm. check online for the free videos mm-hmm. first, check for the absolute free stuff that I don't have to sign up for anything first. Then I might go to Teachers Pay Teachers or some of those other things, but I'm really, really, really frugal. So
I was going to say also to start at your library. Your librarians will help you find all kinds of materials in whatever units you're looking for. But also, if you're Googling, don't forget to add to your search, add the word free, or add in quotation marks, no ads or something like that. And you may get a completely different set of results. So that might help a little bit if you're overwhelmed with the junk. So, okay. All right. No other questions right now. So we're ready to go back to the habits.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy.
All right. So last but not least, are you remembering to teach your unique child instead of trying to teach the curriculum? And you'll hear me repeat this. If you've been to my other workshops, I always repeat, teach the child, not the curriculum. Because I meet so many families that are, especially by January, they are completely freaked out because we're a month behind. Again, there is no behind in homeschool. Okay. You're not behind. What it was is you got this curriculum with 20 chapters, and there's no way you're going to finish 20 chapters, and you didn't figure out which 7 chapters you need to remove, right? It's fine. It really is. Figure out what's important. Figure out what your child will actually learn best. Figure out what your child needs to learn and work on that material. The rest of it, kick it to the curb. So much of the time, we've invested $1,000 in Bookshark, and we get to November and realize, oh, this really isn't working. They're fighting me every morning. They're not liking what I'm doing. And then we decide, okay, well, we're going to take a break over the holidays, and we're going to come back in January, and it'll be great. It's still Bookshark, all right? It's still your kids. Now, I like Bookshark for an awful lot of reasons, so I don't mean to just bash Bookshark. Bookshark, for those of you who don't know, 2 years ago, it's the Sunlight, but it's the non-sectarian or secular version of Sunlight. Great curriculum for a kid who's good with that curriculum. Not good for everybody. So if your child is fighting you every day, you're using the wrong curriculum. If your child is fighting you every day, you're probably using the wrong educational philosophy. Okay. Find what works for your unique family. You do not need to reproduce public school at home. Be proactive and head off issues before they even happen. By January, you feel like you're invested. It's never too late to change. So that's every day that you wake up is a new day to start a new effort. What are they not fighting you on? Keep doing that. All right. Everything else can be changed. Everything else can bring you joy. And homeschooling should absolutely bring you joy. You only have so many years with your kids. And I know that when you have little kids and they're driving you crazy, you're thinking, yeah, okay, really? Serious. You only have so many years with your kids. All right. Begin with the end in mind. And this is where I hope everybody has a piece of paper and a pencil, because I want you to envision what you want and plan how to get there. I want you to write a family mission statement. And this is not something that you can do sitting here, but I want you to think about some questions. How do you get to where you want to be? If you have, a small family or a large family, you have to make a plan how to get there, right? Because someday they're going to be 45 and 50 years old, and you're not going to be. You're going to be 80, right? How do you get the loving, supportive, long-term relationship with your children? This is not about schooling. This is about your relationship with the rest of your family. This can include grandparents. This can include your sisters and your brothers, their aunties and uncles. Okay. This can include whoever is in your life that it needs to include. Right? Write a mission statement. This should take months. All right. This should be updated on a pretty frequent basis. But every single member of the family needs to be involved in the writing of this. So think about how to create that and then curate that. What does my family stand for? What is most important to us, and how can we support one another? And I have to tell you, an awful lot of the feedback that I've received on this is the part about how can we support one another? Because when you have any kind of sibling rivalry and you start stressing supporting one another, it tends to kibosh quite a bit of that sibling rivalry. So how do you support mommy? You help by doing your chores willingly around the house. How do you support daddy? You help by doing your chores willingly around the house. How does mommy support you? Oh, let's list the ways. How do you support your brother? Oh my goodness. Now you put them in a bind, okay? And when they have to actually sit there and list the things, it becomes very difficult when there's a lot of sibling rivalry. So list ways of supporting one another and in being encouraging to one another. And what emotion do we want in our home? If you are in a home that has been experiencing stress, and I know a lot of us have a stressful home, especially in the time of COVID when we're in our home all the time. What emotion do we want in our home becomes paramount. So do you want joy? Do you want happiness? Do you want calm? Do you want the yelling and the screaming? Okay. What emotion do you want in your home? If you spend a fair amount of time playing games, building puzzles, playing with the dog, that's an emotion. If you spend a lot of time supporting one another, that's an emotion. So think about those things. And then one of the things that I encourage you to do is have a monthly family meeting. And this is something that most families haven't even ever thought about. We actually had a bi-weekly family meeting for a while, and then it kind of, became to bi-monthly eventually. So, but have a family meeting. And what I would do is over the course of a day, a week, a month, I would print out or write out all the different educational and fun opportunities that I would see. Oh, there's a hike over here. There's an online class over here. Here's a cool book that I thought you guys would like. And I would bring it to the table. and we would discuss what they were interested in doing and what they weren't interested in doing, because I was over scheduling everybody. I was like, oh, well, we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll do this. And as they got older, they're like, I don't want to do all that. Are you kidding me? I don't want to do all that. It was very informative to me. When you have your kids have a buy-in, you'll find that they bring a lot of issues to the table as well. So-and-so keeps forgetting to put water in the dog bowl. So-and-so keeps taking my favorite toy. All of that can get discussed at the family meeting, and everybody's voice is equal. And this is the hardest part for mom and dad. Everybody's voice is equal. Try it. It's hard. It's never easy at the beginning, but during those family meetings is a great time to start working with your family mission statement. And you don't, again, the family mission statement should take a very long time. This is not an overnight thing. You can look up a lot of family mission statements online and get ideas, but they start at the family meetings. Don't stop having family meetings. If you're one of those families that's never had a family meeting, it feels really awkward at first. If you are a religious family, you can certainly bring that into the event, but have a family meeting. It is a very powerful event. All right. Number 3, put first things first. This is a really hard thing. The moms that are here, I saw one or two dads. You're the manager of the home, and you're basically in a managerial position. And it's really hard sometimes to put first things first when everything seems to be important all at once. Okay, but it's not necessarily. So number 1, important and urgent. My phrase that I use constantly with the kids comes right from Stephen Covey: fire, flood, and blood. If it's not fire, if it's not on fire, if it's not flooding and nobody's bleeding, it is not that urgent. Calm down. Okay. If you're going to wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, fire, flood, or blood. Otherwise, go back to bed. And yes, we did have that happen a couple of times with really fire, flood, or blood at 3 o'clock in the morning. Right? Important and not urgent. Okay, things that are important, but they're really not urgent. Homeschooling, it's important. It's not urgent. Okay, therapies. My family, oh my goodness, the number of therapies. Oh my gosh, can't even talk to you about the number of therapies. All right. It's important. You got to get it done, but it's not urgent. It doesn't have to be done at 10 a.m. Okay. Your relationships with your family are important, just as important, if not more important than a lot of this other stuff. All right. Not urgent. Okay. Home repairs, they're important, but they're not urgent. Okay. If the dryer is broken, the dryer being broken is not going to completely break you. You can survive a couple of days with a broken dryer. All right. Healthy food and healthy actions are important, but they're not urgent. You can let slide a perfectly healthy dinner once in a while. Let's face it. Not every meal has to be a perfect, beautiful dinner. All right. Unimportant but urgent. Phone calls. They're not that important generally, especially in today's day and age. I get more spam calls. Oh my goodness. Okay. Emails. So for the person who was asking about, what do I do with all this stuff? Yeah. Unimportant, but they seem really urgent. Okay. Laundry. Really? You can wear the same pair of underwear 2 days in a row. I know it's not pretty, but you could. Okay. The dishes. Okay. If you're a member of the FlyLady.com or FlyLady group, I know that dishes, having your clean sink. For those of you who don't know FlyLady, she's a hoot. Check her out sometime. It's it's not that important, but it seems really urgent to do the dishes. All right. Most appointments. Okay. Unimportant, but urgent. I need to be there at 2. All right. Unimportant and not urgent. Craft projects, video games, sports, watching TV, watching movies. Now, this said, some of those unimportant and not urgent things feed your soul. If you are a musician and you are not playing music, you're going to have a really rough week. If you are a knitter and you're not knitting, you're going to have a really rough week. You need to still feed your soul, ladies and gentlemen. You need to do it. Please make sure you are taking care of yourself. But it is really important that priority goes to the things in this list. Number 1, fire, flood, and blood. Number 2, the unimportant but not urgent. Okay, that gets second priority. Right there, relationships and homeschooling are on the same level. Do not diminish your relationship with your children while homeschooling them. And it happens a lot. Okay, those are just as important as one another. In fact, in my opinion, your relationship with your children is more important than homeschooling, simply because, well, let's face it, you only have one relationship, and it's really hard to repair once it's permanently broken. All right. Unimportant and urgent, you can skip a lot of that stuff. Although I got to tell you, the number of socks that I matched up and folded while homeschooling, can't even count it. All right. I folded a lot of laundry and cooked a lot of meals and did a lot of dishes while homeschooling. Unimportant and not urgent, that can all be done later. All right. So I'm going to stop here. We're going to go back to any questions that have arisen.
Kathy, I have a question that came in to my attention earlier today, and the person is here today in the program, but I'm going to go ahead and ask the question for her. She says, my kids are nearly 7 and 3. What are great strategies for non-religious practices for starting the school day? My son has a really hard time switching focus. Currently, we turn on an oil diffuser, say the pledge, calendar, read a book, and sing a song with instruments. Do you have some suggestions for her that fit in with this important, not important, urgent? That seemed like that would.
The kids are still really young, so if they're very hands-on kids, you might need to do a little bit of running around in that morning routine as well. I love the reading a book because it helps quiet them down and get them centered. Because they're very young yet, though. Do they need to maybe do a craft project during that while you're reading a book? Are you reading the same story over and over again? Because kids at that age love the same story frequently. Are you allowing for a lot of physical exercise? Because really at that age, a lot of kids really love a lot of physical exercise. Think about that. Maybe some morning calisthenics. I would do dancing. I would absolutely get them up and moving and dancing if at all possible. First thing in the morning. But I know in Waldorf, they actually, they have a morning poem that they read. That basically is supposed to give everybody some intentionality, and they light a candle. And when the candle is lit, they are doing homeschooling. They are doing work. That said, they're young. Are you using the right curriculum for your children? And are you using stuff that works with their learning style? Again, children under 8 are almost all hands-on. So make sure that you're using the right materials for them, that they've had enough active movement. I was just talking to one of the kids that I tutor today, and they've got a puppy. Mm-hmm. And We were talking about little kids and puppies. They need to move. They need to move frequently. In the morning, they need to run around. In the middle of the day, they need to run around. In the evening, they need to run around. So are you giving them an opportunity to run around? That might help focus them. So.
Okay. Great answers. Thank you so much.
Well, hope it helps.
Does anybody else have a question you'd like to type into the chat for Kathy at this time? Nothing coming.
Nope.
Why don't you
right.
keep going, and I can
I'll
always
go
interrupt
back.
as questions come up, okay?
That's all right. I'm all for questions, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Think win-win. And this is going back to relationships. Seek mutually beneficial solutions or agreements in all of your relationships, was his point. And this is, I kind of come back to relationships again and again because it's what sticks with us. Mutual respect is key. And by mutual respect, I'm not talking like brother and sister, I'm talking parent and child and parent. If you don't respect your child's needs and your child doesn't respect your needs, you're going to have a rough relationship. And it's really kind of funny because how many of you, and I'll raise my hand right along with you, how many of you have gone to hide in the bathroom and they're sitting on the other side of the bathroom door? Mom, mom. Okay. Hopefully they were still at that 2 and 3 year old age when they're still so self-absorbed they don't know what mutual respect is. But I've had it happen with older kids, and it's really frustrating. Mutual respect is key. A win for everyone is always a better long-term solution than if only one person in the situation has gotten their way, even if the person who got their way is mommy. And this is really hard because mommy always needs to be the winner to some extent, but it's really hard when mommy is always the only winner, right? You need to kind of let go of being the winner sometimes and understand that a win-win for everybody in the family. And yes, sometimes that means changing curriculum. Sometimes the math program's not the right math program, or we'll do the workbook that I need you to do. I need you to do a workbook. I'm going to lose my mind if you're not doing a math workbook so that I know you're on track. But 2 days a week, we'll play a math game instead. So mommy's getting her way 3 days a week. You're getting your way 2 days a week, and we can work. Find a solution that works for everybody. And set out a contract, set up a schedule so that they know on Tuesdays and Thursdays you get to play a math game instead of doing the stupid worksheets that mom needs, or mom will lose her ever-loving mind. All right, find a way that it works for everybody. Thinking win-win isn't about being nice, and it usually takes more time. And when you say it isn't about being nice, it's not about just rolling over and playing dead. Okay? Thinking win-win isn't about, well, I was told to win-win, so therefore I'll lose. That's not a win-win. Everybody needs to come to win. Okay? Everybody needs to be able to come to win. It's kind of like when you go to buy a car at the car dealership and you're thinking win-win, so you just pay sticker price. What? That's not win-win. Nobody does that. All right. So when you think win-win, it means everybody gets a piece of the winning pie. Grown men are grow men, not lawns. I highly encourage you to go to YouTube and look up the video Green and Clean. And Stephen Covey talks about teaching his son how to grow a lawn. And it is adorable, and it is hysterical, and it is really what all of us need to be thinking about. And his whole point was this son of his was responsible for that summer to keep the lawn green and clean. What does green look like, son? That's right, the neighbor's lawn is green. What does clean look like, son? That's right, this little tiny patch of lawn that we just picked up the garbage off of, that's clean. Clean and green, that's the goal. You could, water it with a watering can. You could, do whatever, but green and clean. And it's how he got there. And he had to keep remembering, I'm supposed to be growing men, not lawns. This is not about what the lawn looks like, although all the neighbors, he was sure, were talking. This is not about what the lawn looks like. This is about growing a man. We're not growing boys, we're growing men. We're not growing little girls, we are growing women. What do you want your sons and daughters to be like when they are mommies and daddies? When they are employees for a business or running their own business? Okay. What do you want your sons and daughters to be like when they are grown men and grown women? And for that, you need thinking win-win. You need relationship building, and you need mutual respect. All right. Number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And this is all about learning to listen to your children. And we all know that yelling doesn't work. We all do it anyway, sometimes, because, well, you repeat yourself 5 times and then all of a sudden you're yelling. Okay. It's really, really hard to listen empathically. It is really hard to get your children to learn to listen empathically. Some of the things that kids say drive us crazy. Some of the most popular ones that I know of, this is stupid. Or, I don't know. You ask them, how much is 2 plus 5? I don't know. Or they just stare at you. You ask them to, what was the name of the little boy that we just read the story about? I don't know. Comments like, I'm bored. Or the ever popular, look at me, when they're outside and they're playing and they're desperate for your attention. Look at me, watch me, what about me? What do they really mean? This is stupid is my personal least favorite thing, because it could mean this is way too easy for me. It could mean this is way too hard for me. It could mean this is teaching me as if I was a visual person and not a hands-on person. It could mean that this is way too hands-on, like you got this math curriculum with all these pieces. This is stupid. I just want to do the worksheet, Mom. Right? What does this is stupid mean? Well, half the time it's coming out of an 8-year-old's mouth and they don't have the vocabulary to describe, or they don't think that you are going to listen empathically, so they just say this is stupid, or they just don't know how to express what's going on in their head when they look at a page and it's got a whole bunch of text and their eyes just can't cope with that much stuff. It's like, I love Dorling Kinserly books, right? DK books are phenomenal, but holy smokes, there's a lot going on. And either you love them or you hate them, all right? And some kids love the content of them, but literally you need to almost mask off everything but one picture or one paragraph, because this is stupid. It's too much on a page. Their eyes are completely overwhelmed, and then their brain is overwhelmed, and then they're overwhelmed, and this is stupid, because it's, how else do they describe it when you're 8 years old? So this is stupid could mean an awful lot of things. The I don't know, or the blank stare, the dread blank stare can mean many of the same things. It often means that they're bored. It often means, like, I know reading comprehension questions, and they're staring at you like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Find a book that they enjoy and then ask them the same questions. Or while you're reading out loud to them, let them build with Legos and see if building with Legos or something like that. Find different things. For my kids, the breakthrough was Calvin and Hobbes. We loved Calvin and Hobbes cartoons. So lovely and snarky, but a great vocabulary. Okay. Everything's completely appropriate, but 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds love Calvin and Hobbes. Okay. I'm bored. Is this a kid who is used to being plugged into a computer, and all of a sudden they're not plugged into a computer, so they're bored? Okay. Frequently that's the case. And literally it's kind of a weaning process. Find a way that they are engaged. And oftentimes that means games. It means finding the joy. And it's really hard to deal with all of these. It's really hard. But finding the win-win, finding out how to truly understand them is very, very important. Next, they need to understand you, because this is all about the whole family seeking first to understand, then to be understood. The whole family needs to do this. And it is super important that the whole family then learns to understand mom. When mom has repeated herself 5 times, that's 4 too many. When dad has repeated himself 5 times, that's 4 too many. Okay. You need to figure out how to better communicate. Sometimes I know in my family, it was writing it down. I didn't have to say it out loud. They would completely ignore me if I said it out loud. If I wrote it down on their daily list, that's great. All right. One of the things that works for an awful lot of families is called workboxing. And the workbox approach works for so many families where nothing else does. And basically, everybody gets a box. And I have behind me something similar. So, these you can buy these cubes for like $5 at the store, and it's a little cloth cube, and it holds all kinds of goodies, and all of the materials that they need for the day are in this box. Everything. So, they're not running around looking for anything, searching for things. There's no reason to do that. And on the front is clipped a list. This is what you're going to do today. You can do it between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. You can do it between 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock. It's the same list. You can sit and complain all day long, but it's the same list. You can put it off until 4 o'clock and then have only between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock to work on that list. Good luck. But there's your list for the day. This list should include everything for the day. So if one of their chores is to empty the dishwasher, it should be on the list. If one of their things is to put in the load of laundry that includes their bed's sheets, it should be on the list. Okay. It should include everything. And that's a really hard concept sometimes to wrap your head around as a mom, but it really, really works in the long run. So I would encourage you to kind of try to get toward something like that if your children don't want to listen to you. Now, if you have pre-readers, some people have used that approach, but with pictures. And sometimes you need to go all the way to like a picture of somebody brushing their teeth, a picture of somebody taking a shower. a picture of whatever it is that they're not remembering to do. Junior high boys, taking a shower. Oof. Whatever it is that they're forgetting to do, workbox it. Right? It works for an awful lot of families. All right. Let's stop there and see if there are any questions.
Here's one. Thank you. Let's see. We've got, what are the natural repercussions if they don't get their list done?
Well,
sure. Consequences, right?
I'm a big one for natural consequences. It depends on what it was and how old the child was, or is in this case. So, you know, if you want it to be, they didn't put their laundry away. So in my house, for instance, I always folded all the laundry and put it on the kitchen table, and your laundry was at your seat at the kitchen table. So if you did not put your laundry away, you had no place to put your plate, so therefore you didn't eat dinner. Natural consequences. Each kid did it once. They didn't believe me that I would go through with it. Ha! Gotcha. All right. You know, it's always really important when it's homeschool related that you not jeopardize your relationship. And you can't ever let chapter 5 stand between you and your kid. It's chapter 5 will always win. Your kid will push your buttons and chapter 5 will win. So come up with something. If you have that kid or they're at that age, come up with an agreement. If you finish chapter 5 by Friday, you get this. All right. If you've completed everything on your workbox for the entire week, we'll go to DQ on Saturday. All right. If you finish everything in your workbox for an entire week, I'll give you an extra $5. All right. Whatever it is that's going to work for your child. I know one family, you know, she's got one or two of her sons, they're collecting tools, big time tools, like really expensive tools. So she could maybe use a tool, or a game would be appropriate for many of you, or an experience. If we get everything done, you get to go to this summer camp. If you get everything done for this month, I'll sign you up for next month's horseback riding lessons. All right. Whatever it is that's going to work for your kids, but put it in writing. Make a contract out of it, because that way it's the contract's fault when stuff goes south, if stuff goes south, and it's not your fault. You don't want it to be your fault, because that would jeopardize your relationship. And this is all about keeping your relationship with your kids while still homeschooling them successfully. Does that make sense? Okay. Anything else?
I'm not seeing any other questions right now.
So if the person that asked that has a very specific situation, ask. We'll see if we can come up with something. So
you can go ahead and unmute if that's the case, if you have a specific question.
Just remember, it is being recorded, so we don't want to make it too
not too personal. No.
I always dread that somebody's going to say something and the kid's going to be 18 and find their mother telling a horror story about them. It's up on YouTube. Mother, how could you have done that?
He'll get over it. Go ahead, Valerie.
No, he's 7 years old and he likes to fight me. And all I just do is, like, if we're doing the dreaded worksheets, and, you know, every once in a while we have to do them, he's got to learn how to do that type of stuff sometimes. Yeah, a few times a month is not going to kill him. So, and he wants to, I just say, okay, well, you know, this is what we got to do today. And we can't really move on with the day. Oh man, it really stinks that your siblings are watching what they want on a glowing screen or whatever. It's too bad you don't have your stuff done. How about this? When you're ready to get your stuff done, I'll work with you and then you can go join them and go do that stuff. I was just wondering, you know, that's what we do here and it works pretty well, but I'm always looking for new ideas and stuff like that because yeah, he's one who doesn't ever want to do anything that's not his idea to begin with. So yeah, and that approach works pretty darn well for him. Eventually.
It does as a general rule because it's basically bribery, and bribery works for all of us. If I get the laundry folded in time, I get to have a piece of chocolate, right? Anyway, so my bribe to myself is always a piece of chocolate, as you can see from my finger. But anyway, so when you are doing something like that, and again, I'm going to go back to, is it the right material? Mm-hmm. Is there a 7-year-old frequently will have small motor coordination problems that bigger kids don't necessarily have, or especially boys. A lot of boys have small motor coordination problems. Gross motor, they're great. Big muscles. Hands don't work as well. And so it's really, really hard for a lot of younger kids just because their hands are they're not built for that. And I am a mother of a dyslexic dysgraphic, and you can look up dysgraphia, but basically it's a significant issue. He is 28 years old and his handwriting still looks like he's in kindergarten. And it'll never get better because he's a dysgraphic, and that's okay. So building up their hand muscles is always a very good thing. And you can build up their hand muscles using clay, real clay, not the Play-Doh stuff, but real clay, through using scissor skills, so cutting a bunch of different kinds of materials, through anything including putting toothpicks through a colander and building a big pile of toothpicks on the kitchen floor. But build up those hand muscles, and maybe that will help him out a little bit too. So I'm not sure she was able to hold on. So
no, that sounds good.
There you go.
Okay, but look up dysgraphia. It's pretty important. All right. Anybody else? Okay, so I'm going to go back. We're going to go to synergize. We were made as unique individuals with our own gifts and talents, and as a team, we work together. And again, helping kids learn independence is super, super important. My kids were big into calendars, lists. So we already talked about work boxing. Lists of chores are crucial. If your kids are not doing chores in the home, you're doing your children a disservice, in my opinion. And I know that your children will not agree with me at all. But I think everybody needs to learn how to do chores around the house, how to function around the house. If you are thinking, they're 2 and they're 7 and they're 9, they're too little to do chores, I'm going to show you Google disagrees with you. So if you go to Google, we're going to go back here to house. I'm going to close that. On Google, if you type in age-appropriate chores for kids, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of graphic organizers for you. And you can click on any one of these and it will show you that there are dozens and dozens and dozens of chores that are perfectly appropriate. So let's look. We have from 2 to 3 years old, and I'm going to get the circle of death here. We have a bunch of chores, and this would include things like running, running the little sweeper, or sorting the silverware out of the dishwasher. They love sorting silverware. They love helping match colors of socks. They might be too young to truly match the socks, although matching the socks was always my absolute least favorite chore. So it was one of the first things that I always had my kids try to help with. But 2 to 3 years, they're still willing to help you. So give them everything that they can. By 7 to 11 years old, they're usually tall enough that they can start doing the laundry, right? Have them do as much as humanly possible as early as is appropriate. So, and literally this is Pinterest, so you can come in here, you can figure out what's appropriate, 7 to 11, folding laundry, sweeping, vacuuming, taking out the trash, washing mirrors, meal prep, weeding the flowers in the garden, cleaning out the car, cleaning the toilets, cleaning their bedroom, organizing the toy room, bringing in the mail, bringing in the newspaper. By 12 plus, washing windows, babysitting, ironing. Who irons anymore? Laundry, mopping floors, cleaning the bathroom. 4 to 6 years old, putting away the groceries, making the bed, wiping down dirty walls, emptying the trash, sweeping with a small broom. These are all very appropriate things that even little kids can do. It is so important that young children, I don't want to see all their, Pinterest will always give you extra ideas. There are so many of those free chore charts. Go and find some ideas. Make sure your children know that they are contributing to the household by helping the household. And they are contributing to the household by, yes, doing chores. You don't have to necessarily use the word chores, though. Family meetings are very, very important. I'm a big one, again, for family meetings, but having a list of things helps children learn independence, and it helps you work together as a team. I know a fair number of families that through these activities, they talk, Team Wentz, okay, Team Stevens, we're a team. It's really important that you become a team and stress the team, synergize. Let me go on here. Sharpen the saw. This is the one every mom in particular has a really hard time with, and that is taking care of you first, darn it. All right. Balance and renew yourself, your resources, your energy, and your health. This means exercise, prayer and meditation, quality reading, and other opportunities for mental renewal, even if it means a little Janet Ivanovich once in a while. All right. Service to society. Now, I'm a big one for the reading and the service to society and the meditation, not so good with the exercise. We all have our weaknesses and our strengths in this, but sharpening the saw becomes crucial. Are you still learning? Are you still educating yourself? This becomes crucial. You still need to educate yourself. You need to read books that will educate you. You need to watch programs that will educate you. The people who spend all of their days watching the soap operas and, oh my goodness, the bachelor stuff, just really, people, okay. What are you doing to educate yourself? It really is very, very important. And it doesn't have to be a formal education. You don't need to go out and get your doctorate, although that's a great thing. But you do need to continue your education throughout your life. So my personal goal is I read a nonfiction book and then I read a fiction book and then I read a nonfiction book and then I read a fiction book. It works. I try to keep up. Okay. Exercise though, I'm not so good at the goals. If anybody has any hints for me, I am all ears. Other than getting up and stretching because my joints all ache or so, because I've been sitting too long. When you find what works for you, schedule it. Don't leave it to chance. Schedule it. It becomes that crucial. But you will not be renewed unless you keep renewing yourself. And when you have young kids in the household, it is really hard to stay renewed. When you are dealing with stress, it is really hard to stay renewed. When you are dealing with anxiety because of all the goofy stuff that's going on in the world today, it is really hard to stay at your strongest. So please take the time to figure out how to sharpen the saw. And it's called sharpening the saw from the old story of, the woodcutter has been working on cutting down a tree. And he's been working on it and working on it and working on it. He's been working on it for 4 hours, just sawing, and he's exhausted, sawing and sawing and sawing. And somebody says, dude, stop and sharpen your saw. Oh, I don't have time. I need to get this tree down. Okay. He needed to sharpen the saw. Had he sharpened the saw, he probably would have had it down in 15 minutes instead. For everybody who had to go out and clean their driveway off after the ice storms, all right, how many of you had the right tool for the job? So I watched one of my sons out there. He did not have the right tool for the job. I went out with the right tool for the job, showed him, and had a lot of it cleaned off before he could get caught back up to me. So that would be my exercise, right? Anyway, so when you have the opportunity to sharpen the saw, to use the right tool, to make yourself a better tool for your future, you become basically your own secret weapon. Okay? Strengthen your mind, strengthen your spirit, strengthen your body. It becomes very, very important. And yes, this also means, eating healthy, boring. All right. The bonus 8th habit, find your voice and inspire others to find theirs. Mentor other people. For those of you who are good at something, I hope that you are mentoring others in that something. If you're good at math, help somebody else who's not good at math teach her kids. Okay? If you've been homeschooling for a while, mentor other people in how to homeschool. If you are really good at exercising, come and mentor me. So I'm serious. I need to do something here. Help where you can in society. Please help wherever you can in society. If it's volunteering at the food kitchen or at the senior center or in a choir or wherever, help where you can. There's Friends of the Library groups that are always looking for volunteers. There are so many different places that are always looking for help. If you see somebody at the grocery store who, looks like they can't afford something, help them out if you can. I don't know how many times I've done that, and it brings me such happiness and it's a nothing. I'm not a wealthy person, but it brings me such happiness to be able to help somebody out. And sometimes it's literally a little tiny something. It's kind of sad sometimes how much help people just need. If you have the ability to help other people, do it. This society desperately needs you, and just as you need other people. So please make sure that you are mentoring where you can, you're helping where you can, you're volunteering where you can, and teach your children to volunteer. It's kind of funny because so many of our kids have never really volunteered. And I actually made it a requirement that my children volunteer. It literally was a grade on their college or their high school transcripts, volunteerism. And they had it right on their transcripts, because to me, volunteering is that important. And my kids still volunteer today. So please make sure you do what you can toward finding your voice and helping other people find theirs. All right. So how are we doing on questions? I think we ended with kind of a little bit of time for like some open forum Q&A.
Yeah, definitely. We had a question regarding, it goes back to the synergizing point, working together as a family and chores. And do you have some thoughts on reward charts as far as using rewards versus just saying this is your responsibility? How would that tie in best for you?
It depends upon the child and the situation. Mm-hmm. If you're tracking like a long-term goal, then a chart to keep track of whether or not they've attained that goal is always a good thing. So just like the library has, if you read 30 books, mm-hmm. well, you need some kind of a chart to track when you've completed those 30 books so that they can see the goal. They can keep their eyes on the prize, as mm-hmm. it were. All right. And frequently we need that too. How many of you step on the scale once a week or more to keep your eye on the prize? It's an important thing to do, to keep your eye on the prize. And a lot of us, especially for those of us that are visual, a chart really can help. But a chart can also be bad for some kids. Mm-hmm. If the chart ends up being more of a shaming thing, you need to be kind of cautious. So, well, it's already January and you only have 5 books read. You have to read 25 books mm-hmm. before May. You know, well, we need to get cracking on this. Mm-hmm. Okay. So part of it depends upon the child and the situation and the goal. So if you are in a situation where if you complete your entire workbox list every day for 5 days, we go to DQ on Saturday. Mm-hmm. All right. Would you necessarily need a chore chart for that? No, but you could just keep the list with it checked off and maybe keep it up on the refrigerator. But if it's a longer term goal than that, absolutely. I'm not a huge fan of chore charts specifically because I think that household, activities like that maybe should be right with the workboxing, because I don't necessarily think things should be separated out. This is school work. This is chores. It's all part of their life. And I don't necessarily like separating out things that don't need to be separated out. Learning shouldn't only happen between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Learning should happen 24/7. And if you've separated it out to be a specific time frame, maybe it's not going to be as conducive for them to want to learn at any time during the rest of their life. And so I like things a little bit more freeform. You still want to give them some structure. Absolutely. Kids need structure. Parents need structure. but what kind of structure is depends largely upon what the goal is and what the child's attitude toward that goal is. Boy, that was a really loosey-goosey answer. Sorry about that.
It's all good. Okay. Well,
So who has another question?
Does anybody have a question? Very quiet, folks.
They're well behaved.
Very. Maybe they're shy because we're recording. We could call an end to the program and stop recording, and then everybody can unmute and chit chat. Does that sound good to everybody? And you can ask Kathy questions about the 7 habits.
Why don't we do that?
Or about, yep, okay. So, all right, I'm gonna just do a closing really quickly. Just as a reminder, the handouts are available if you email me at akunzen@huntleylibrary.org. I'm happy to send those to you. I'll be in the library tomorrow to do that. We can also send you the handout for the Homeschooling 101, which Kathy referred to a little bit early on in the program. So thank you all for attending, and watch for the video. You can share it with your friends or other homeschooling families once we put it up on YouTube from the Huntley Library's YouTube page, okay?